lean back into the leather. Let the cigar smoke drift toward the dim ceiling, and do not look at me as an ancient bust carved from stone, nor as a series of clinical definitions trapped within old European case studies. Look at me as an old doctor who sat in the shadows of Vienna, listening to the muffled weeping of men who possessed everything the world could offer: wealth, titles, pristine reputations, yet remained utterly broken from within. You sit there, in your highly sophisticated modern landscape, convinced that you are the master of your actions. You check your bank accounts, you schedule your milestones, and you swipe through your digital reality, proudly believing that your conscious mind is the supreme commander of your destiny. Let me tell you a truth that will pierce through the thick armor of your vanity. You are not even master in your own house. Your conscious mind is merely a tiny, trembling sailor sitting on a fragile raft, oblivious to the monstrous, churning currents of the ocean beneath him. Imagine a vast, towering iceberg floating in the black waters of the North Atlantic. The shimmering peak that rises above the waves, catching the elegant sunlight. That is your conscious ego. It is your logic, your polite social manners, the clean identity you present to your colleagues and your spouses. But beneath the surface lies the hidden 90%, a massive, jagged fortress of compressed ice containing your primitive drives, your buried shames, your ancient aggressions, and the unhealed wounds of your forgotten nursery. This is the unconscious. The world tells you that your choices are born out of cold, rational calculations. They tell you that you choose your career out of passion, your relationships out of love, and your anxieties out of modern stress. What an extraordinary act of self-delusion. The choices you believe are free are merely the elaborate rationalizations your ego constructs to justify the secret commands of your subterranean master. Look at your own existence. Why do you repeatedly sabotage the very success you claim to hunger for? Why do you find yourself drawn to toxic partnerships that recreate the exact emotional abandonments of your childhood? Why does a sudden, paralyzing wave of anxiety strike your chest at midnight, even when your external life is completely stable? You call it bad luck. You call it stress. I call it the return of the repressed. For nothing is ever truly forgotten in the architecture of the mind. The memories you attempted to bury alive did not die. They were merely cast into the dark, where they mutated, grew teeth, and now rule your life through the invisible machinery of your symptoms. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Let us speak of the prison you call your character. You live in an era that worships the concept of optimization. You are instructed to be perfectly productive, flawlessly positive, and completely scrubbed of any dark, untidy impulses. You wear a mask of constant compliance, nodding politely to your superiors and repressing your natural rage beneath a veneer of corporate etiquette. You call it maturity. I call it a ticking psychological bomb. For civilization is purchase at a devastating cost, the systematic forfeiture of our instinctual happiness. We are all primal beasts who have been dragged out of the wild, forced to wear tailored suits, and locked within the cages of social propriety. Consider the dynamic structure of your internal civil war. Within you sits the T, the ancient, unblinking wolf that knows nothing of morals, laws, or consequences. It knows only the pleasure principle, the raw, immediate hunger to consume, to dominate, to love, and to destroy. Opposing this wolf stands the superego, the tyrannical, internal judge, sculpted out of the voices of your demanding fathers, your societal institutions, and your cultural taboos. The superego does not negotiate. It watches your thoughts from the shadows of your skull, punishing every forbidden desire with the burning whip of guilt. Caught between these two towering giants is your fragile ego, desperately trying to keep the peace while being torn apart by both sides. Why do you think the modern man is so profoundly exhausted? It is not because you are working too hard. It is because you are spending an immense amount of your vital psychological energy simply holding down the lid on your own volcano. Every drop of aggression you refuse to acknowledge does not evaporate. It is internalized by the superego and turned back against yourself. This is the hidden anatomy of your depression. Your sadness is merely your own primal force, your own unexpressed rage, inverted and weaponized against your own ego. You are treating yourself with a cruelty you would never permit from an external enemy. The cold rule of the subconscious that men learn too late is that your instincts cannot be destroyed through denial. When you refuse to look at your capacity for aggression, when you pretend that you are entirely gentle, altruistic, and devoid of selfishness, you do not become a saint. You merely become a hypocrite whose shadow operates outside of your conscious awareness. The man who boasts most loudly of his virtue is almost always the man whose unconscious is most desperately choked with filth. If you wish to heal your life forever, you must stop running from the darker quarters of your mind. You must learn to look at your inner monster without blinking, for a beast that is known and integrated can be commanded, but a beast that is denied will eventually break the cage and consume the trainer. Look around you at the scripts you are performing. You believe you are an author writing a unique story, but you are actually an actor performing in a repetitive psychic theater designed decades ago. Have you ever wondered why you keep running into the exact same walls? You change your job because your previous manager was a tyrant, only to find that your new superior activates the exact same patterns of resentment within your chest. You break off a relationship because your partner was cold and uncommunicative, only to choose a new lover who treats your vulnerability with the exact same chilly indifference. This is not a coincidence. This is the repetition compulsion. The human psyche possesses an extraordinary, perverse hunger to return to its unhealed wounds. We do not run away from our childhood traumas. We unconsciously seek out environments and people that recreate them, driven by a desperate, magical hope that this time we will master the outcome. The boy who was never seen by an emotionally distant father grows into a man who spends his entire life chasing the validation of cold, unpleasable authorities. He ruins his health, sacrifices his peace, and barters his integrity, believing he is chasing career success. He is not chasing success. He is still a 5-year-old child standing at the edge of the nursery, begging a silent father to look up from his papers. Consider the sheer waste of your life's velocity. You pass your days projecting your internal cinema onto the living people around you. You treat your colleagues as if they were your competitive brothers. You treat your wives as if they were your protective mothers. You treat your children as if they were extensions of your own unfulfilled vanity. You are not interacting with reality at all. You are walking through a hall of mirrors, fighting ghost wars with shadows from your past, while the present hour slips through your fingers like hot ash. The cold truth that men realize too late is that your ego will gladly choose the comfort of familiar suffering over the terrifying uncertainty of freedom. It is safer to remain a victim of your past than to assume the absolute, crushing responsibility of your present choices. Break the projector. The next time you feel a wave of intense, irrational, emotional reaction, a sudden surge of bitter jealousy, an overwhelming need to flee, or a burning rage over a minor slight, do not look at the person across from you. Turn your gaze inward. Ask yourself, whose voice am I actually hearing right now? What old wound is this current moment scraping against? The moment you identify the ghost, it loses its grip on your hand. You step out of the script, and for the first time in your life, you begin to choose. Let us speak of the ultimate defense. Let us speak of your narcissism. You live in a culture that has turned the worship of the self into a primary industry. You are told to love yourself unconditionally, to protect your peace at all costs, and to excise anyone from your life who requires you to compromise your comfort. You have built a magnificent shrine to your own ego, believing that isolation is independence. But a man who loves only his own reflection is destined to drown in his own pool. Your narcissism is not self-love. It is a desperate, brittle fortress constructed to protect a profoundly fragile core from the terrifying friction of reality. The supreme paradox of human connection is that to truly find your life, you must be willing to risk its exposure to another. But exposure breeds anxiety. To love deeply is to hand someone a knife and trust that they will not plunge it into your chest. It means acknowledging your own incompleteness, your own fundamental dependency, your own radical vulnerability. The modern man is too cowardly for this surrender. He prefers the sterile, frictionless safety of his digital networks, where he can curate his image, control his investments, and retreat into his solitude the moment a relationship demands a real sacrifice. He believes he is preserving his freedom. What an agonizing miscalculation. He is merely converting his fortress into his mausoleum. Look at your fear of aging, your obsession with perpetual youth, your frantic hoarding of material symbols of security. You are running an impossible race against the ultimate castrator, time. You think that if you accumulate enough wealth, if you build a large enough buffer of social status, you can insulate yourself from the organic reality of your condition. But the subconscious knows the ledger is already balanced. Every hour you spend hiding from your mortality is an hour you have stolen from your capacity to live. Illusions commend themselves to us because they save us pain and allow us to enjoy pleasure instead. We must therefore accept it without complaint when they collide with a bit of reality against which they are dashed to pieces. The final liquidation of your vanity is an absolute certainty. The hair will gray. The strength will fade. The market will shift. And eventually, the white sheets of a hospital bed will claim your body. You cannot take your psychological defenses into the grave, since the walls of your ego must inevitably fall. Why do you defend them with such a trembling, anxious heart? Why do you let the fear of a temporary vulnerability prevent you from diving into the raw, beautiful torrent of human existence? Stop living as if your primary duty is to protect your skin. Your duty is to burn your energy completely on the altar of reality. Breathe. Let the heavy static of your modern illusions drop away into the darkness. Let the frantic panic of your social standings, your unhealed shames, and your manufactured anxieties fall from your shoulders like a damp, heavy cloak. You are not a helpless victim of your biography. You are an immense, complex psychic architecture, an intelligence capable of turning its gaze inward, auditing its own shadows, and negotiating a peace treaty between the wolf and the judge. You are the analyst. You are the sovereign. You are the master of your own internal kingdom. Look out over the landscape of your remaining hours. The territories of your potential are wide open and waiting to be cleared of ghosts. The rivers of your energy are waiting to be redirected toward your true legacy. Do not look back at the childhood nursery with tears of self-pity. Do not mourn the years you spent sleepwalking in a script you did not write. The past is an old map that has already been drawn. It has no power to bind the living velocity of this present hour. Your current consciousness is the only crucible that matters. When you open your eyes and step back into the competitive markets of your city, do not walk as a compliant prisoner of your defenses. Walk with the quiet, internal poise of a man who has looked into his own abyss and survived. When confronted by the temptation to repress your truth for an easy comfort, choose the sharp, clean friction of self-awareness. When confronted by an old pattern of sabotage, smile at the ghost, name its origin, and choose a new trajectory. And when confronted by the briefness of your hour, let it fill your veins with an unyielding determination to experience every drop of reality without anesthesia. Your healing does not require a life free of suffering. It requires only this: an absolute commitment to truth over comfort, a sovereign mind that refuses to be governed by its forgotten rules, and the magnificent, unshakable courage to say to every shadow that rises from the deep, "I know you now. You have no more power over my house."